Recording in progress. Hello, Georgia.
Hi.
So I'm going to just do a short introduction, although Georgia and I can just be freeform. But given that I'm actually going to share some of this content about the process of starting to write new songs for an album, I thought I'd do a little introduction. So Georgia Train is with me today. Georgia is my musical mentor and worked with me in all sorts of ways on my second album and at the launch and everything. So from vocal coach to producer to musical director at the launch and so on. And we've worked with each other a little bit since then. And now Georgia is helping encourage me on this next stage of my musical adventure into what we're presuming is going to be a third album. And it's very much at the start of it, really, of the journey. And I felt that it would be quite an interesting process to document and share how I go about writing new songs for an album, which may be very different to many other people. Really, absolutely from their infancy through to hopefully whenever they're produced and performed for the first time, which is something that I don't think we see very often. So basically, my new songs are in their infancy. I've got 4 or 5 bubbling at different stages. So what we're doing today, Georgia and I will check in every couple of weeks to see where I'm getting to. And the last time we actually, had a chat, she threw a bit of a googly because she asked me to go away and start working on some chords for things. Chords are quite difficult for me, and I won't spend hours on explaining why, other than they're just an alien concept. But anyway, suffice to say, I've made a little bit of progress since our chat 2 weeks ago. And we're just going to recap on where I've got to and where I go next in terms of developing these songs.
Yeah.
So
I just want to add as well that, because I think from a songwriter's point of view and anyone watching this, I think that there's sometimes a bit of resistance about coming up with chords. If you're a vocalist in particular and you write melodies first, melodies and lyrics, chords can sometimes be the thing that's left till last until you get in a room with another musician or somebody who's going to add that element for you. But one of the things that we're working on with you, Jude, as well, is just this idea of keeping you a self-contained songwriter and musician who can lead, who can essentially lead your own project without the need of external help. And in an ideal world, we'll get to a stage where you don't need my advice anymore. You don't need other musicians to tell you yes or no to the this is the kind of process. So I think from my point of view as a songwriter, and knowing that the chords themselves are legally 33.3% of the song, and so it's about you taking ownership of your own royalties, but it's also going to be making you a better musician, and I think the time to start writing the chords is definitely before you've finished the melody. I think the sooner you can get the base of the kind of sonic foundation for where the song is headed, the better, because if you're just writing melodically, you've almost, in a way, and some musicians are going to hate me for saying this, but you've got too much freedom in that you will probably vary, you'll go out of the key that you were originally in, you might go out of the tempo that you were originally in, and then you end up with this kind of long sort of rambling piece, which we then have to restructure when we want to make it a pop song again, and when we make it feel like it's got pace and drive, and so often when I've been working with singers and songwriters who are coming up with melodies, there's been a kind of a point where I say, do you realize that this feels like it's 2 separate songs? And that's because maybe they've written in 2 different time signatures without knowing it, or 2 different tempos, or 2 different keys. And so I think the solution to that is exactly what we're trying to work on now, Jude, which is getting you, like, from inception, as soon as you've got an idea, getting you to figure out what that feels like technically on an instrument as well, because then that sets the pace and sets the tone for the rest of the piece. And of course, you'll still, like, deviate, you'll still have your melody contour, but it will all be within a natural framework already, rather than being too wildly off the beaten track. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does. I think, yes, that's very helpful, actually. I think also for viewers who might be tuning into this, obviously that's also trying to develop me. So with every stage of my sort of musical adventure, I'm learning new skills and developing myself, really. And so when I brought out my first album in 2016, I did have to work on chords myself, but it was very much in a music lesson setting with a local singing teacher to where I live. And then I had an arranger who would sort of take the information, the lyrics, the melody, the chords that we thought applied to them and work out the arrangement. And then when I worked with you on my second album, we did sit next to each other, and we just worked out the chords. So I didn't probably have to put in as much work myself on the actual chords or trying to work out what they were, because we were kind of working that out together. So this is probably these songs for this album is taking me a stage further, really, in my development, and trying to get me really to stand on my own 2 feet a little bit more in terms of working those chords out. So I think that's quite interesting in terms of the process. I think that's quite interesting what you said about, you might come up with, if you haven't worked out the chords or the key even or anything, and I've just come up with bits of melodies, they could almost sound like 2 separate things. So what's quite interesting, I think, for the purposes of today, is that one of the songs that was perhaps a little more developed than before, which we're calling Freedom D. So last time you said go away, see if you can come up with some chords, but also see if you can work out a verse to go with what we're considering a chorus at the moment. And I think I've come up with a tune that could be the verse. So it might be quite interesting to listen to that, listen to the 2 things together, maybe just listen to them separately or whatever, and see if they will work together. I don't know, maybe that's a good place to start. So I have got, so all my stuff I sort of work out, because I don't play an instrument and so on, I work stuff out in a very basic way on GarageBand. So I'll tend to come up with a beat or a little vibe or something. So all these songs are related to freedom, some type of freedom. And this particular one we're calling, at the moment, Freedom D. It does have a bit of a title, but we'll just call it Freedom D. So if I play the bit that's, so I didn't edit this together terribly well, but we can listen to the little verse melody that I recorded into my voice memo after you've heard the 2 things put together. So the first section, which we're calling a chorus, I had already recorded into this just with a little click sort of thing. So here we go. Hopefully you can hear it. If not, shout. I'm going to sing. Wasn't part of the plan. Dancing with you on cobblestone, streets fill up with people, strolling hand in hand, voices playing, ricocheting, hips sway to the band. I'll forget what the next ones are. dancing with you on cobblestones. Streets fill up with people, traveling hand in hand. Faces glowing, tempo growing, freedom across the land. There you go, get a free gig.
Technology. We should have just stuck with
technology. Who needs technology?
Brilliant.
So anyway, so basically, just to sort of explain a little bit behind this song, it is a bit bluesy, a bit what did we say? A bit of swing going on and things, and there was also a little bit of sort of some early Elvis that was inspiring this as well. And I can kind of hear a cowboy clip-clopping along a little bit. And actually that verse, there are little elements of that where I can almost sort of see, the start of an old John Wayne Western or something. So, but I don't know where it came from. Obviously I had the chorus, and then that it was just what I call a musical doodle that came into my head and I just recorded into my phone. So that's how I came up with that. So do they work together, Georgia, is the question.
I think they do. They work perfectly together. And it's kind of got, I think the thing that you're visualizing, the sort of John Wayne kind of reference, is that it's got a certain speed, which has a swag to it, doesn't it? It's got this sort of swaggering along the street kind of pace to it. So I think that's going to be really important when we come to actually develop this into a song, because the moment we start trying to speed this up, it will lose that vibe. So making sure that we kind of keep it this tempo so that you keep that feeling of the swaggery kind of, quite slow paced beat. I think, so the do section, let's just be clear. So that bit, I'm pushing back a little bit, but are you 100% sure that that's your chorus, or is there something else to come off the back of that? Do you hear a section 3?
I think there will be a section 3. I just haven't got to it. So the bit that has words, I'm calling the chorus, but
okay. So
that's slightly repetitive, isn't it? So I almost go through that twice, but yeah. I changed the lyrics and the last 2 lines of each time round. So that's a little bit for me. Well, it could, again, if we call it, maybe it's better to call them sections A, B, and C rather than choruses and verses, and then work that out.
Because traditionally the chorus wouldn't be that length, it wouldn't be that long, and also it wouldn't change ideally that quickly. I mean, you might have one alternate.
You're talking to Josh. Stick to rules. Okay.
See, that's where I feel like that is more a verse than it is a chorus. And then your do section was actually about half the length. It was
more of a chorus.
That could be more of a chorus. Yeah. Or it might be devil's advocate speaking here, but it might be that you haven't actually written the chorus yet. It might be that what you thought was the chorus ends up being the verse. Because I do hear there is room for a third development.
Definitely.
Something quite simple, chanty, and maybe a little bit higher.
I think that takes it somewhere higher, probably. It soars a little bit somewhere.
Yeah, soaring. I was just about to say, I feel like we haven't hit the moment where everything just kind of flies yet. And that for me will probably be what I expect to hear in the chorus. So we should start calling these section A, section B, and section C. So I think the challenge for you to go away this week is to find that third section that soars now. And it needs to stay super simple, because already you've got quite a lot of stuff actually going on. There's quite a lot of notes in both the sections that you've written, and they're long sections because of the pace of the music. Everything's quite long and drawn out. So actually, in this third section, it would be really nice to just have, 2, maximum 4 lines that are almost identical, in terms of their like melodic kind of shape and contour, so that it's super memorable.
Yeah.
I've probably said this to you before, but I always think that a good chorus, a really good chorus, is something that can be easily remembered by a child or can be sung back by a football crowd,
Yeah.
And I think so. I think we want something simple, something soaring. Yeah, you're absolutely right, because everything has also been within a sort of limited range.
Yeah.
So let's take it up and let's
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So that's that one. Then I have sent you, in terms of things that are new, which is probably what we need to sort of focus on, is just any sort of progress that I feel that I've made since we last chatted, because I haven't actually spent a lot of time, I confess, on these songs. I said in the first vlog that I sort of tend to write in flurries. This is very much an example of that. So you wanted me to work on some chords before, so which was to do with Freedom A. So, I did, but basically it may be that we just sort of work out, we just confirm those when I'm face to face with you in a couple of weeks.
I think so. We can also film that. It'll just be a bit more interactive if we're both sat around the piano together.
So basically, Freedom A is a bit of a bluesy thing. It's a 12-bar blues in terms of the actual sort of melody and so on, in the key of A. Which Georgia gave me a great big hint about after our last session, and it took me 4 hours before I worked that out for myself. And that particular song, which we're calling Freedom A, is a song about having freedom of choice, freedom of speech, that sort of thing. So the only other sort of progress, I guess, that I have made is I haven't done I haven't actioned a lot of the tasks that you suggested I might when we last spoke. But again, things come from nowhere, don't they? So I sort of came up with a whole bunch of lyrics to do with what will be a new song. Now obviously we're having techie problems in terms of me sharing actual music, but basically I found a little hip hop vibe on GarageBand, because I just came up with this series of lyrics and it just felt appropriate to sort of have some kind of hip hop beat behind it. Now, ultimately, it won't be a hip hop type style song, because this album is probably going to be quite bluesy, quite a bit sort of rockabilly. It was very much inspired initially in terms of getting off the ground by a Bob Dylan album, and that is Modern Times, as opposed to a lot of his earlier stuff. And then there's been a bit of Elvis creeping in and various other influences. But so hip hop probably wouldn't fit in with that. But it was a way of sort of just bashing out the words, really. And I have sent you a Dropbox folder which has those words in, and this will be the subject really is about freedom from constraints of sexuality. Obviously I'm a gay woman, so I can relate to that, but I happened to also watch a film a few weeks ago called Clapham Junction, which is about a bunch of gay men and all the sort of struggles that they were having, and several of them are very seemingly sort of pillars of society and married and having families and everything. And it was a fabulous little film, but it got me to really sort of thinking about some of these challenges. And I ended up writing some words along those lines. So I think in what I've sent to you, I'm calling this Freedom E. Mm-hmm. If I just sort of run through, is that what you want, the way that you want, what you need, how you want? She, is that what you need, the way that you need, what you want, how you need? He, to see how it feels, that jolt of excitement, a chase to delight in, a beautiful depiction of desire and affliction. Is that what it means to be free? To see how it feels when you're out of control, when you're out on parole, parading like a peacock, not being judged in the dock. Is that what it means to be free? To see how it feels when all is revealed, when there's no more shield. Is it shame without a name when your feathers are aflame? Is that what it means to be free? To see how it feels, come out of your closet, you'll be fine, don't knock it. Who you channeling tonight, no more Jekyll and Hyde? Is that what it means to be free? So I've got lots of little sections in there that repeat, but at the moment I don't know, I might mix them up. But essentially it's that thing about people working out who they are and what they are really. So that will develop, but I've got a lot of words there that will turn into something.
I think it's stunning. And I think the the chorus of this is not going to be your typical, well, as the words are written currently anyway. I mean, I know you might change them, but right now it's like the chorus is literally that one line, is that what it means to be free? Because everything else is continuously changing. So it does remind me in some ways of actually early Bob Dylan. And I know you're not going to like this, but it does remind me of kind of folk because ultimately you don't have that traditional kind of repetitive chorus. It's just the one line, the kind of one tagline at the end, which I feel like we've done that before in one of your songs as well.
Well, you might be thinking of To Put Things in Perspective.
I am.
So that was a bit sort of ranty, a bit sort of like that, wasn't it? It was a bit ranty, a bit sort of almost speaking rather than singing. On album number 2, The Window to My Soul. Yeah,
and with that, the kind of feeling of that song, to put things in perspective, it was that kind of driving, stomping beat that allowed you to have that kind of repetitive, but not boring, repetitiveness, but it was full of tension and kind of nervous energy. And I think that that's something that maybe you want to think about when you're writing a melody to these words is, okay, this is inevitably, it's going to be repetitive. So what you're really aware of is setting the pace at a stage, setting the pace, and then maybe finding that one melodic hook for, is that what it means to be free, that anchors everything each time, but also that is it's got to be super catchy, because it will literally be the only catchy thing allowed in your song, because the rest of it's just going to be repetitive kind of driving words. So I would just play around between now and when I next see you. I would play around with the phrase, is that what it means to be free? And just constantly have your iPhone ready to record. Just ad-lib with those words, and just over and over again sing different melodies until you get one that really sticks, and one that really feels like it has a kind of stamp of its own, a life of its own. Maybe that could be the beginning of that song's sound, because the rest of it almost writes itself really, and that this could work as a spoken word piece.
I was thinking that, so I just need to explore it, because I literally just came up with these words a couple of days ago, so having sort of written one or two of the lines down a couple of weeks ago, after I'd seen this film. So this was something that just sort of spewed out, if you like, really, and for some reason I put a hip-hop beat behind it, but that just it sort of framed it really, so it gave me that slightly repetitive framework just to sort of put these words down.
And as you're working with it at the moment, is it, when you're singing it or speaking it with the beat, is it more spoken than it is sung, or have you actually got bits and pieces of melody coming out?
No, not yet. No, so that's it. That's where I've got to with that.
Yeah. Well, that's clearly written the next little step for you then. The next goal is to start pulling out that melody on that last.
So I've sort of got, so basically I've now got, I've got the makings of 5 or 6 songs actually, in different stages, of course, very much different stages. So I don't know, will you just email me, you know, some thoughts about what I might try and work on in the next couple of weeks, or shall I just get on with
I can just recap what we said here. But the main thing I think is to try and come up with a little bit of melody for this freedom. Yeah. A section 3 for I keep forgetting which one it is. Is it Freedom D now? Freedom A?
One about Paris.
Cobbled Streets.
The Cobbled Cowboy one.
That one needs the soaring section, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So and once you've got that song pretty much, I think, is just ready for chorus.
Yeah, that's definitely the most advanced. That's definitely way in front of the others, really, I think. So I need the soaring bit, and I also need some lyrics for those extra sections.
Yeah.
And then we're sort of really starting to craft that properly. So.
And then I think by that point we are ready for a face-to-face session, because we can only realistically get 2, maybe 3 songs worked on in one session when we're talking about chords. And we've got the one that you're suggesting is 12-bar blues. So we'll need to check those chords, make sure that it actually is 12-bar blues, make sure that it actually is in the right key, that we want to keep it where it is. You might want to change it up a little bit. So that will take us 45 minutes just to run through that. And that one's pretty much there. And then we can have a go at figuring out the chords for these other 2 as well, which will, that, you know, so really I don't think there's much point working on any, you know, unless you're totally inspired.
I'll just keep going. I'll just focus on those things, really.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're really tempted and really inspired, I would say not to start anything new.
But I wasn't supposed to be, but you know, if something pops out, then I might just, you know,
got to capture it.
I'll capture it, exactly, but won't do any more with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you don't want to become overwhelmed. And what we
bank it and put it away in a little box.
Yeah, you don't want to become overwhelmed. And what we actually need to do is like harness the sound of what you've got so far, because that will help dictate where everything else is going as well.
Okay, well, that's great. That's a good session. I've really enjoyed that, and I'm going to clock off now to go and edit this, because we are going to make this available in its entirety. I might it depends how painful the techie issues was, and Marg popped up at one stage as well, which was quite amusing, our technician. But so I'll see how that is, but I'll also be trying to edit it down to a sort of vlog-sized episode as well, which I'm going to try and put out this evening. And
will we record our face-to-face session as well?
I don't know. We can think about that. I hadn't necessarily planned on it. I just thought this would be I thought it would be quite easy to record this Zoom conversation. So we'll see.
Oh, we got something.
A bit of singing as well, which is quite interesting. So thanks, Georgia. Thank you to those people who are going to tune in and be watching this, and I hope you've found it interesting and enlightening, and that you'll continue to tune in to this vlog series and see how I get on with this latest project. So thank you very much, Georgia, and thank you everybody else.
Thank you.
Bye for now.